that at all now.
Was there ice cream?
There was ice cream down there. I supplied ice cream down to the picture house down there.
Right.
And I'll tell you, I was, where was I? I was down in Cork, and I was out for a meal in this hotel, and there was a whole lot of personality photographs all around the place. And I was sitting looking at them, and I said to the crowd of boys I was with, "Do you see that boy there? He used to sell ice cream for me down in the picture house in Island. Dennis Taylor."
That's right, I remember him doing it, all right.
Him and Lukey Cullen.
I forgot about Lukey, that's right. Lukey done it.
And they were two supplied that. Barnett came up to me and asked me would I send out Walsh's ice cream at the time, and would I sell some in the picture house. He wanted to get in a fridge and all that sort of thing, and he says, "I want to see how it goes." So I said, "Oh, that's all right." So I used to get these two lads to bring they come up, got this ice cream, and went down and sold it in the picture house.
So they were working really for you, they weren't
They were
working
working for me, and then when he saw that it was going all right, he got a fridge and all that. But Walsh's ice cream was a big thing then.
Oh, it was certainly was.
Lovely ice cream too, I remember it well. I remember it well, it was
Well,
lovely.
funny enough, you couldn't have. I remember I wanted to get ice cream in, and I went round sort of and saw what they were selling around the town, and nobody had Walsh's, and Walsh's was just more or less coming into Northern Ireland at the time, and I phoned them in Belfast and said that I would like to supply Walsh's ice cream. Oh, he says, "We have a couple of customers up in that direction," and I says, "Not in Coal Island." He says, "We have them in Cookstown and in Dungannon."
Yes.
And I says, "But that's not Coal Island." And I says, "Do you travel from Cookstown to Dungannon to supply?" And he says, "Yes." And I says, "Well, then you have to pass through Coal Island. There's no other way then." And I says, "I have a shop on Main Street and I want to sell your ice cream." And he said, "Well, you'll have to buy your own fridge." And I said, "That's all right, I'll buy my own fridge." And I bought my own fridge, and the boy come and filled her up. And he says, "We'll be back next week." And 2 days later, I was ringing him. I said, "Can you not come sooner, because that's the way." And he'd done it again. And I called him 3 times in the 1 week. And he said, "I can't be coming here every other day," he says. So he says, "You'll have to get another fridge." And I says, "Well, I have to pay for this one first." And the next day I got a fridge delivered by Walsh's too, free of charge. And I filled it to him, and that was, oh God, I so
Some ice cream.
some ice cream.
You certainly did, but
And I remember the boys that were sweeping the street at the time used to complain about all the papers that was laying around the street. Oh no, you could talk for days and days about those things.
you certainly could. Do you remember Gauzy? Do you remember your man Gauzy? He used to sell
Clothes.
fish.
Oh, fish, yeah.
Do you remember him?
Was he Skelton?
Nice Skelton.
John Skelton?
No. There's a boy called Gauzy. Gosney. You spelled his name. He's from Mahary or somewhere. Funny name, but he's around every week. Every Thursday he came round with a fish van. Outside round the doors. You don't remember him, no?
No, I don't remember.
You remember Pat Jackson?
I do.
Oh, Pat going round
With a donkey and cart.
with a donkey and cart and lifting any old brock.
That's right.
He called brock with scraps for the...
Yeah, but if you said brock to youngsters now, they wouldn't have a clue what you're talking about.
No.
But it was for pigs.
For pigs, yeah. Get some stuff.
Well, there was, and then there was one on Bark Street there, done scrap too. He would have been where, just above the doctor's place there. What's he called him now? And he had a horse and cart, and he get scrap.
What about Father Walls? Do you remember Father Walls? Just when you went up Barrack Street there, brought it into my head. Father Walls was a sharp sort of a boy when he was here.
God, he was. Well, and he was good crack too, you know.
Aye.
But I used to go to mass in the morning up this church up here. I used to deliver him papers on a Sunday, which was the Sunday Press and the Sunday Independent. and I used to throw him in. He lived in Barrack Street.
That's right, now, grey house.
And when I was going up to Mass, I would stop and throw the papers into him and go on. But he turned to me this day and he said, it was Monday, and he says to me, you know, you delivered the papers yesterday. I said, I did, Father. Do you know what papers you give me? I says, I give you the Press and Independent. You did not, he says. You give me the News of the World. And I said, oh dear God. And he says, you're not getting it back, I want it.
He was certainly old school. At that time, the News of the World wasn't allowed in our house.
Oh, Jesus.
It wasn't allowed anywhere.
It wasn't allowed anywhere.
Well, they got it next door to use in Devon.
Given them the News of the World. And
One.
he read it. I'm saying he read it like before.
He read it before he wrote it.
Well, you had to know what to get name.
But he was a good tour, you know, Father was like.
He was a good tour, but he was very cross with the young ones. Like we were learning to be altar boys, and you remember Fatty Quinn, Francie Quinn. Well, anyway, Fatty was in the same class as me. We were all lined out to be altar boys, and we were all terrified of him, like you know. And he said something to Fatty, and everything that he said to Fatty would go, pardon, Fa. And eventually, Fa Walls got sick of this, and he says, Quinn, if you say pardon, Fa, one more time, I'm going to kick you out of this chapel. Oh, 2 seconds later, pardon, Fa. And he kicked him, he literally kicked him. He held him by the back of the neck, and he kicked him the whole way up the aisle and out.
Yeah, I remember.
That was the good old days.
What do you call him? Timlin. And had the shop in Gorguns up in
Niall.
Oh, Niall.
Niall. Niall told me about him being an altar boy up there, and they were playing out the back, and Father was late or something coming up, so they were playing out the back and they had a ball and they were kicking around, and then the next thing they saw him in the vestry, and they said, "Go, there's the priest in," and they were all run in, you see, and Niall was left to lift the ball, and he was last in, brought it in, and he walked through the door and he turned around, he seen him coming in, he said, "Timlin, you're late, go home." And of course Niall had to go home, and when he went down home, the father says to him, what's your early today? He said, it was sent home, and then he explained what had happened, you see. And Joe was very annoyed with the whole thing anyway, and he says, well, I must see Father Walls about this. And that day, Father Walls came down and went into the post office. Remember, you could see it from
across the road. Yeah.
And he seen him going in, you see, and Joe took the coat off. He was doing somebody's hair, and he says, "Can you wait a wee minute? I'll be back in a few minutes. I've a man to see here." And Father Walsh came out of the post office, and he looked across and he saw Joe Timlin stepping out onto the footpath, and he pulled the hat down like this here, and he walked straight across the street. He knew he was going down the main street, and he walked across, and just as he came up to Joe Timlin, he says to Joe Timlin, "You're a bad-tempered man. God help your wee wife," he says, "and poor children." He never broke a step. He just walked on, and Joe came in and he sat down, and he says to the boy, "Well, I don't know what to say," he says, and he started to laugh. That was it.
He just took the first of them.
He just took the first of them.
Get your retaliation in first, eh? That was him.
Okay.
Time in March, he rang up and said that he was coming home. And my mum was in awful panic, and she says, "God, what's wrong with him? He must be sick, and him doing his finals is terrible." So I was told to go to the station and meet him up at the station. I drove up and I got him and I said, "What the hell's wrong with you? I thought you were sick." He says, "No, I'm not sick." He says, "I have a bit of news for him when I go home." And I says, "What's that?" He says, "I'd done the exams 2 weeks ago," he says, "and I got them. I'm qualified doctor."
Right. So it was a nice story.
So that was some excitement when I came home. That was on a Wednesday, I can remember it well. And on Thursday morning, he got a phone call from Strabane.
Pause it, Danny.
The source.
Far away. Is you recording? There we go.
So anyway, right here. That was tired of the way that you didn't have to do any test or anything, and everybody just. What did you do? You right away for your license, then? Did you
Yeah,
send
you
it?
apply to the license in Dungannon,
Oh, right.
and they give you a license.